So today we're really going to focus on the short answer question, both for the paper and pencil exam and the digital exam. This is the part of the AP test that you take after the multiple choice, right? You have the 55 multiple choice questions in 55 minutes, and then you're going to do a set here now of short answer questions. So for those of you coming up to that first administration that's going to be paper and pencil, you're going to write a total of 3 questions. You have 40 minutes to write the 3 questions, and it will come to 20% of the points that you're able to get on the AP exam. The first question you're going to do is required. Everyone writes question number 1. It includes either 1 or 2 secondary sources. And coming up in a future review, we're going to do a whole thing on secondary sources. That's going to be next week. And it's going to focus on the historical developments or processes from the year 1600 through the year 2001. So some of what we just covered, it's not going to be in there because everything pretty much that Todd and I just talked about is mostly before 1600 and stopping at 2001. So that's question 1, and everyone who takes the paper and pencil exam will write that one. Question 2 is also required, and this is going to be a primary source. It's going to focus on the same time period between 1600 and 2001. And for that one, it might be a primary source text, it might be an image, but it will be a primary source for question 2. So on the paper and pencil exam, the students that take that first administration will get a choice. You're going to choose between question 3 and question 4. So for both of these questions, there is no stimulus. They are just a text-based question. And it's going to focus that first question 3 on historical developments that cover from 1450 to 1648, which is period 1 in AP Euro, and or from 1648 to 1815, which is period 2. Question 4 is going to be the later part of the course. It's going to be 1815 to 1914 and or 1914 to the present. So students get to choose which question between question 3 and 4 they prefer. There's no source, and they only write one of these 2, and they can read them both and make the choice which one that they want to answer.
Thanks, Katie. So for the digital exam, the SAQ, this part, the section B short answer part, you will have 3 questions. You'll have 40 minutes. It is 20% of the score. So you can see it is compared to the paper pencil. Question 1 then is a required one, and it includes 1 primary source text. Focuses on historical developments or processes between 1600 and 2001. So you're getting a primary source, and it's a piece of text, and you have to, well, the one that's sent to you, that's the one you must answer. Well, it's the only one that will be in front of you for question 1. Question 2 is required as well, and it will be a map source. It focuses on historical developments or processes between the years of 1450 and 2001. And so we're going to give you a map source as a practice today, but just know that question 2 is required. You won't have any choice there, and it will be a map. Question 3 is also required. This is a difference between the paper, pencil, and the digital, is that those in doing paper, pencil are going to have this choice here between 2 questions between an earlier or later period. But in the digital exam, you're going to have 1 sent to you. It's question 3. It'll include 1 primary source image. And it focuses on historical developments or processes between years 1450 and 2001. And we have 1 of those for you to practice on as well today. So we wanted to show you a little bit of the differences between whether you're taking the first administration, which is paper pencil, or that second administration, or the actually third administration, which will be the digital exam, that there is a slight difference, even though they're going to count for the same amount of score.
And, you know, as we're looking at an example, it's also kind of good to note that for the people who are taking the digital exam, in the later part of the exam, after the document-based question, there are 2 other SAQs that the digital administration is going to have students write. And one of those will be a secondary source SAQ, like what we had just talked about for the people taking the pencil and paper, as well as a data set SAQ. But those will not be at the beginning of the exam. Those will instead be at the end. All right, so let's unpack the SAQ. It is a really straightforward task. And I think it's probably the thing my own students will say is the most straightforward, the easiest to understand. There's not a complicated rubric, and we're going to go over rubrics for other parts of the exam. But it is a really straightforward task that will assess content knowledge and skills. Each part, each SAQ has 3 parts, and each part is 1 point. We're going to first look at the prompts and identify the task verb that is used for each part. So you're going to see one of 2 task verbs here that have kind of a different level that you need to be familiar with. So the entry level task is describe. And for describing, you're really going to provide the characteristics of a specific topic. You're going to tell us what happened, for example. You don't need to go into a tremendous amount of depth for a describe, whereas as we move to the next one for explain, we are digging deeper. It is a more complex task. So you provide information about how or why a relationship, a process, a pattern, position, situation, or outcome occurs using evidence and or reasoning. So it goes beyond just describe in that you're not only going to tell us what happened, but you're going to go deeper and tell us how it happened, why it happened, what caused it to happen because of how it happened. So definitely you want to be mindful of the task verb and doing what's necessary to get the point on these 3-part short answer questions.
As you're responding to the short answer question, there is kind of a practice or a method you should use. So one of the things that we want you to do, or we encourage you to do, is to label each part. So you're going to see the parts are listed A, and there's a task that you have to do, B, there's a task, and C, there's a task. And in your response, it is helpful to readers if you label A, B, C. And I also think it really helps you focus while you're in the exam. Okay, this is what I'm responding to A, and so this is my response, and B, and so forth. We encourage you to use the stem of the prompt to begin your response to the prompt, to begin how you respond to the prompt, okay? So when responding to explain prompts, and also, as this is what Katie just talked about, be sure to include the how, why, or because. So an example would be, explain how the historical situation in England led to political change in the 1500s, okay? So we're definitely talking about like English Reformation. And your sample would be, as I'm writing my sample response, you see the purple, I'm going to use the stem of the prompt in my response to the prompt. So I would say, the historical situation in England led to political change in the 1500s because, or due to, and then put in my response. And if I even have more to say or can give some specific example or specific evidence who was involved, that is going to bring you to that level that you'll get to earn the point, okay? So again, use that stem of the prompt to respond to the prompt.
All right, and we're going to be giving you kind of structure for writing throughout the whole week on the different parts. I know this is a pretty simple task compared to some of the other things we're going to do, but we really like to provide you with some structure. So we've come up with 2 different potential practice SAQs for you to work with. And if you have a look at the image here, this is a Bruegel, this is the Harvesters, and he is a Northern Renaissance painter from the Netherlands. And so I'm not gonna, part of me wants to dig into the image with you, but instead, that's your homework, is to kind of dig into the image and have a look, knowing who this is. If you need to go back to AP Daily, he is covered in the Northern Renaissance art video. And so let's have a look at our SAQ that kind of goes with this. And it's a continuity and change SAQ. And it starts off with that entry-level task of describing. So you're going to describe how the subject of the painting, so what do you see that's going on in the painting? And how does that reflect a continuity with everyday life from the period of the middle of the 15th century, which is when the course starts, to the mid 17th century. So you're going to tell me, you're going to describe how the subject of the painting reflects that. For the B task, we're going deeper. We're going to explain how the subject of the painting reflects artistic movements during the 16th century. And so what do you know about art movements in the 16th century and what's going on here in the painting and how that relates to it? And so you're going to give me the how, the why. And then the last task is to explain how patterns of European economic life as depicted in the painting will change after the 17th century. So we kind of started off with continuity, we're ending with change. Where are we going next, and explaining how that changes, right? And giving me specific examples The SAQs come from specific examples of evidence. We want to be as specific as possible.
It's a really good SAQ you developed there, Katie. That looks good. All right. So here, that was your practice number 1, or choice number 1. Here is choice number 2. And this is a map source. And it's not the best map. I kind of wish I could, pinch it and make it bigger, but I wasn't allowed to crop this photo. But it's okay. You're kind of getting a broad view of the progress of the Reformation. You can see it. We also, these are going to be available to you as well. So you can kind of take a closer look. But you're looking at a map of progress of the Reformation. Okay, Western and Central Europe, progress of the Reformation to 1560. So here's our A task. Describe how the historical situation in England led to political change in the 1500s. Political situation in England led to political change. Historical situation led to political change in the 1500s. The B task is explain how the situation represented in the map demonstrates a change from the political situation in the German lands prior to 1500. Okay. And the C task, explain how the situation represented in the map caused political change in France after 1560. So we're talking about different types of changes, and you're kind of talking, it's a little causal, right? So cause-effect relationships is kind of what we're looking at there and assessing there. Those are your 2 choices for practice for homework for today. All right, so how do we get out the homework and how do I turn it in?